how do I get the next meeting? What's the next meeting need to be? And when I was able to tell people why we were having the meeting and how they were going to benefit from it, they would say yes to the meeting. And so I started to pick up this pattern. And then I started to think about, like, what are we doing in these calls? Well, sometimes we're collecting.
I asked him, like, he's 60 years old. I said, how do you keep going at this age? He said, there are only two words, Ashish. It's passion and perseverance. You lose one of them, you're done.
Too polite to say that. So in the United States, we call it a competitive displacement. And what does competitive displacement means? It means stealing someone's customer from them. We're displacing.
Hey guys, welcome to Ashish Janiani. Wherever you are watching this broadcast, I appreciate you being a part of the community, especially the sales community that we represent. If you're an entrepreneur, if you are a small business, if you are a business consultant, if you are involved in sales in any capacity, which you may not know, but you are, even if you're not in sales, this channel is for you. We aim at bringing you the best speakers on this planet who will guide you along with our channel being the platform for that, for you to be able to achieve your sales targets, your sales goals, and to continuously learn about sales. I've been super excited to bring you other interviews that we've done so far with Bob Burke, Mark Hunter, Amanda Ohms, Scott Ingram, Rajesh Srinivasan. And today I have an equally important guest joining us today, just in a couple minutes. Uh, this man has personally changed me from being a salesperson who sells forcefully to being a consultant. And when I say forcefully, I don't say it in a bad way. I just say that, well, we kind of do that sometimes because of lack of knowledge. But this man came into my life 3 years back and he changed the way I do sales, because he just walked me through the language that was needed in the process to become a consultant. This man has written three outstanding books. The book that changed my life is The Lost Art of Closing. He's also the writer of the only sales guide you will ever need. And why is it called like that? We'll ask him that question when he's here today. And eat their lunch. If you've got competition, which most of us have, this book is for us. And I'm going to talk to him about that book also today, because I've not read that one yet. So isn't this interview a great platform for him, for us to ask those questions to him, right? So Anthony Iannarino, right? The famous global speaker is going to join us today. This man is humble. This man is very soft spoken. He is sharp. He's super. Uh, all these words I tell you from my heart, because this man made me a consultant from a salesman, and I owe that to him even today without knowing. I now use it without knowing it, subconsciously. His words, his language, his way of explaining things has made me what I am today. So help me welcome Anthony Iannarino on our channel, Ashish Janiani. And just want to learn a few more things. I'm going to ask you different questions. The
Okay.
first question is, how did the first book came upon, the only sales guide that you'll ever need? Like, how did that title, how did you come up with that book in the first place?
Okay. So I didn't get to pick the title. So when you sell your book to a publisher, they get to pick the title. So my
Okay.
my title was 17 Elements because there's 17 elements in the book, but they hated that name, and they decided that I didn't get to keep that name. But when you sign a book deal, there's kind of a romance. Like there's this
Yeah.
courtship where we're talking to each other and they're being really, kind and concerned. And then they're like, this is the name. And then you're like,
Hmm.
oh, okay. So that's how it goes. They picked the name, The Only Sales Guide You'll Ever Need, which I thought was not the best choice when you have a 3-book deal. And, because all my friends and everybody said, like, I thought that was the only sales guide I was ever going to need. And now you gave me another book. But that's how it goes. So the way that book started is a publisher asked me to write it. And then I
Hmm.
gave them the book. And when I gave them the book, they hated it. They said, we hate self-discipline. We hate caring. We don't know why those belong in that book. You should get rid of that. And
They
then they
actually
eventually
said
said,
that.
what's that?
They
Yeah.
actually said that. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I pushed back and I said, "You've never sold before, have you?" And the publisher said, "No, I haven't." And I said, "I know, or you would know these things." So we parted ways, and I was going to publish the book on my own. And then Portfolio found me and asked me to write the book for them. And from there, it was just great relationship. They understood what I was doing, and it worked out well.
Wow, wow. So I'm going to be honest with you. Last time we interacted, I think it didn't come to me. When I found you 3 years back, I was in sales for 8 to 10 years. So you start thinking that you can write a book on sales, and I thought I knew a lot. That's what I thought, and I was like, what should be the title of my book? I had not met you. I did not know about you at that time. uh, and I thought my book should be called The Only Sales Book. That's what I wanted to really call it. And I could imagine that on a shelf, because I was like, all these guys who've written books, what if I could accumulate all that data and come up with something original? And the next thing you know, it was a short span of time. I don't know how many months, but maybe a couple months. I came across you. We spoke about. I watched the lost art of closing on Mentor Box, where you interacted, and then I went to find this book of yours. Then I realized how little I knew about sales, because when you taught me in that class, my game changed, which is what I shared with you last time. So how
Yeah.
did that book actually come upon then? Like, because you told me that it came in 9 months, the second book. How did you come up with that book? And if we can talk about that book.
What's interesting about that is I wrote it we published it in 10 months. So we published it very fast, but it took me a lot longer than 10 months to understand what shows up in that book. So that's 30 years, right? That's not everything in that book is 30 years. It's not 9 months or 10 months. I wish it was. But I had read Spin Selling by Neil Rackham, which is
Hmm.
a great book. And in that book, he talked about the best salespeople were getting in advance. They weren't closing the deal on the first try. They were getting in advance. And I read
Hmm.
that book in 1992. So I read it maybe 4 years after it was written. And as soon as I
Uh,
understood this idea that it's just a series of commitments that we make together, and we go from this point to this point, it all opened up for me. Now, I didn't have that structure at that point in time. I just knew I have to get the next meeting. Like, how do I get the next meeting? What's the next meeting need to be? And when I was able to tell people why we were having the meeting and how they were going to benefit from it, they would say yes to the meeting. And so I started
hmm.
to pick up this pattern. And then I started to think about, like, what are we doing in these calls? Well, sometimes we're collaborating, and sometimes we're talking
Hmm.
about the investment and how we do this. And sometimes we're bringing other people in to get their consent and to make sure that they're on the team. And I started just writing them all down. And I started writing them down long before the book came about. That's why it came so fast, is because I've been doing it for a long time. But that was the
Wow.
first time I actually ever wrote it out and showed people what that structure looks like for me. And because you read the book, like you could have other commitments you need too. Like you could have other ones that don't show up on that list, and that's okay. You just need to know what they are.
Yes. So take me back. You got me curious. Take me back to that 1992 and you becoming this author. What got you so passionate about sales? Because there are two kinds of sales trainers or consultants. One who do that, and after a while they just lose it. So one man told me in India, he's got a lifetime achievement award of being a coach. So I asked him, like, he's 60 years old. I said, how do you keep going at this age? He said, there are only two words, Ashish. It's passion and perseverance. You lose
Hmm.
one of them, you're done. And it stuck
Right.
with me. So in that process, what got you from, like, I really want to dig deeper. I really want to go in. I really want to figure it out. I want to go. It's just a thing, right? That you just go deeper and deeper. What made you do that?
Necessity. I had a small business and I had to make it a
Mm,
bigger business. So necessity. I found out that this was my thing when I realized it was helping people get results that they couldn't get without me. That's when I recognized it was mine. Like, I like this. I like helping people. And I was helping people from an operational role, but I had a bigger impact on the outside. So after I had my brain surgery in 1992, I came back and I literally read every book I could find on sales. I read every book on sales process. I read every book on management and leadership, and particularly everything that Rackham wrote, but things like Mac Hannon's Consultative Selling, which, you know, came out in 1970 and no one ever really executed it, because it's kind of a hard thing to execute unless you're really consultative. And I just read everything, and I went to every course I could take. I studied. We had cassette tapes back then, but
Yeah.
before there was a phone. And, you know, I had like my mobile university. I had a university on wheels. I would drive around and I'd always be listening and trying to just pick up something else. And here's the thing, and you know this already, Ashish, when you start pouring good stuff in, like you just keep pouring good stuff in and pouring good stuff in and pouring good stuff in, good stuff starts coming out. That's how it works. But if you don't ever put good stuff in, good stuff doesn't come out. So you've got to ingest all this and digest all this over time. And I was passionate about it, still am. I'm still a seeker, still reading and still learning.
So before I ask you the final two questions, I've got one more question for you. I didn't know about the brain surgery A. So what was that about? And inclusive of that question is, where do you see yourself now when you've achieved all these things? How do you see yourself placed in the world?
How do I see myself? So the brain surgery, I had a group of arteries and veins that grew into a knot, and it pushed on
Okay.
my brain, and it caused me to have a grand mal seizure. So I had to have the arteries and veins removed and a piece of my brain removed because it was bruised. It would never heal. So I had that happen when I was 25. Now, how do I see myself now? I see myself as just getting started with nothing but potential in front of me. That's how I always see myself. I'm a work
Wow.
in progress.
Wow. Wow. So the brain part that got removed, like did it grow back or it's just not there?
Not there.
So how does the whole brain function?
It doesn't need that part. That
Okay.
that that was the part that was holding me back. As soon as I got rid of it, I did better. I don't know.
I like that. Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, I never read that anywhere about you. That's the first time I'm actually hearing that. Okay. Pretty inspiring. So, Anthony, coming to the book, wow. Uh, if we could speak about, the lost art of closing, if we could pick up a couple most important aspects of that book, and if you can end the session today with eat their lunch. Like
Yeah.
one insight from that, because I got curious last time, I want to pick it up. And since we are talking again, I thought I'll use the opportunity to know a little bit more about it.
Let me, I'll do both of those for you. So the first thing is the lost art of closing is basically built on two principles and 10 commitments. Now the 10 commitments, you can get into those if you want to, but the two principles are when you are asking someone for a commitment, you have to trade enough value. That means they have to get something out of it, and you have to be able to convey that to them if you want to get the commitment. So a lot of times we ask people like, well, I'd love to have another meeting with you. Okay. But what about, and what do I get out of it? You're asking me for my time. What do I get? And so people make it much harder to get commitments because they don't explain what the client gets. Like, I know what you get. You get to have another conversation, get closer to a deal, but they need to know what they get. Like, you're getting closer to your result too. So we have to explain that to them. And the second thing is to be able to, what I call, control the process. So tell them what we're doing next and why we're doing it next, and try to get them to commit to going through that conversation with you. And because you've sold for a long time, you know this. Sometimes they'll try to skip the commitment they need to make. And you're like, we need to get the rest of your team in here to talk about this. And like, no, I'll make the decision. And you're like, no, you won't. You can't, because they're going to resist us the whole way because we didn't even talk to them. And if you can get through those two things, then the rest of it turns out to be pretty easy. And I think you've had good experience using it. And you see that when you start trying to walk them through the conversations, it goes a lot better.
Yes.
Okay, so now eat their lunch. I'll tell you about that one. So eat their lunch is about stealing customers away from your competition. So we're too polite to say that. So in the United States, we call it a competitive displacement. And what does competitive displacement means? It means stealing someone's customer from them. We're displacing it. So no one had ever written a book on competition in sales. And I think it's incredibly important. And what's most important to know is that the person who creates the most value for the client wins. And what happens, Ashish, is that sometimes people get complacent. They feel like they're entitled to the business. They think, well, I have a contract, nothing bad could happen to me. And that's just not true. And when you are not taking care of your client, you're exposed. And then somebody like me or you is going to show up and knock on the door, and we're going to create new value for you. And you're going to be like, I'm hiring these guys, you're out. And that's the way that works.
Yes.
But that's a book about how to do that.
Wow. All right. So one tip that these guys can take in language that they can use, and then we'll give them your credentials, especially the corporate. So we do a little corporate introduction. I think there's a lot of place for you in the Indian corporate. And I want these guys to know, especially now that we have virtual trainings being accepted, and it doesn't matter where you are. Just before
True.
that, one language tip that people can use from the book, from any of your books.
Well, let's start with how you get a meeting, because that's the hardest one. So that's the hardest commitment to get. So instead of saying like, Ashish, I'd love to stop by and introduce myself and tell you about my company and then learn a little bit about you. What works better, Wednesday at 11 or Thursday at 2 o'clock? Okay, well, people have done that for a long time. So everybody's kind of immune to it now. Like we've been vaccinated against that that plague of the same pitch over and over again. But if you were to say something different, if you were to say, Ashish, I'd love to ask you for a 20-minute executive briefing where I could share with you the 4 trends that are going to have the biggest impact on your industry over the next 18 to 24 months. And even if there's not a next step for me, I'm going to leave you with a slide deck, and you're going to be able to challenge your management team to make some decisions around this, whether you do it with us or with somebody else. What do you look like Thursday? I'll leave you with the deck. And if there's no next steps, that's fine. We'll know each other and you'll know how we think about these things. What works for you on Thursday? Okay, so what I'm doing is trading value. There's going to be an executive briefing. You get more out of this than I do. Even if we don't work together, I'm still going to give you the insights.
Yeah, and you need to be a consultant to do that. Like in your brain, you really need to prepare for customers. Yeah, good. All right, good stuff. Now, this is for all the Indian corporates out there, the Fortune 500. Some of you guys, we interact, we do trainings. And I just want you guys to know that Anthony is something that made me who I am today when I train you guys. And the way I kind of interact with you. By the way, 67% of my clients in the last 5 years of running this consultation business have been on retainership basis. And this is not possible if there are not good things happening. And a lot of it came to me 3 years back. So I want you guys to know, Anthony, especially in this virtual world, Anthony, if you were to give a message to Indian corporates, which are very similar, by the way, to the American corporate, they work in a very similar manner. I would love for you to introduce yourself.
I would tell you that you have to figure out how to create compelling, differentiated value. That's the most important thing. You have to have something that's worth changing for. And so now your job is to help people figure out why they should change and how they should change, and then help them do that. That's the most important thing right now.
Great. And if they were to get in touch with you for their employees or some kind of a training program, because we train here in English as well. So how would they get in touch with you?
thesalesblog.com. And there's a contact page. And if you reach out, somebody on our team will reach out to you.
Great. All right. Good stuff. I really appreciate that, Anthony. This message is going to go out to them. And I look forward to working with you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
No, I really appreciate this, and this time it's fine. You have a great day, and I'll stay in touch with you. So this is going to be fun.
Please do. Okay. See you soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.